Yeah, please go ahead.
Right. So, good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to this talk on implantable sensors. We have today Shahid Malik with us, who is a research scholar from our electrical engineering department, and he will be explaining what the injectable sensors really are. What are so? Shahid did his masters from Jamia Millia Islamia University, and he specialized in control and instrumentation systems. He has submitted his PhD thesis and he is looking forward to start his postdoc at Imperial College London. He has worked as a guest faculty at MNIT Jaipur and he was also associated with CSIR Siri Pilani, and he is a visiting scholar. He was visiting scholar with Tufts University at Boston, USA, and at BCN MedTech Spain. So here are some of the pointers. If you have any questions, you are free to ask. You can also raise your hand or you can write it in the chat box. This session, we are recording this session and it will be available on the BGSC YouTube channel in, let's say, coming 2 to 3 days. Okay, now without boring you further, let me hand this over to Shahid.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll start the presentation straightforward.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So the topic of the talk is injectable sensors based on passive rectification of volume conducted currents. Uh, so we all know there are like a lot of applications where implantable sensor and systems can be used. Among them, the most common and most the one that everyone is looking forward nowadays is brain-computer interface, where we are looking to implant sensors onto the brain and get the information out of it. Whereas there are other applications as well for simply health monitoring and prosthetic application to control instrument and all stuff. So these are some of the applications where implantable sensors are being used. And I'm going to talk about a technique that we proposed, which potentially reduces the size or miniaturize the size of the implant. So the injectable sensors or implantable sensors which are being used currently are based on the powering of basically the uh, factors which affect the use of implantable sensors are the size of implant. So I mean it's obvious that when the size of the implant is large, it is very difficult to implant it in a specific part of the body because of the obvious reason that we don't want to be involved in that. So for implantable sensors to be used very commonly, we have to have techniques or miniaturization technique which reduces the size. So they can be deployed in a very specific target of the body where we want to get the signal out of it, or control the prosthetic and all. So the primary concern is the size of the implant and what lead to a bulky implant. There are the most common factor which affect the miniaturization of implant is the powering approach. So we have to have some sort of powering technique which can be used to power the implantable sensor that being injected. So the current powering approach are based on battery and inductive coils which are being used to transfer the power wirelessly transfer the power to the implant. So battery, there are relatively few concern with the battery because of course one is the size and second one is the life of the battery because it cannot be predefined, prolongedly used inside the body. We have to recharge it somehow, and in order to do that, we have to have some sort of wireless power transfer, or if not, then we have to do surgery and replace the battery and then implant it again, which is not very preferable approach. The second one is inductive coils. There are a couple of demerits with inductive coils as well. First is of course the size, because in order to get more and more power, we need to have a larger coil. For example, we can see here in reference 2 and 3, the coil size is around more than 60 mm, which is quite a lot. and this is only the coil which is for the powering. Then there is electronic part, and there is sensor and all this stuff. So the overall implant size is very huge. So the primary concerns are the powering approach, which are basically right now depends on battery or inductive coils. So what we are proposing is to use body tissue, because tissue in the body are conductive, so they can carry the power to the implant. So rather than using some inductive form of power transferring and batteries, we can just directly use body tissue as a conductive medium to transfer power from outside to the implantable surgery. So so in this case, we neither need a battery nor need some sort of coil. So we can reduce the size of the implant only to the electronics part and sensor part. So this can lead to a very miniaturized implant for the medical purposes. So the basic principle of this approach is as shown in this diagram, where we'll have a bus generator, which is basically a sine wave generator or any external generator, which will directly supply the signal to the part of the body where we have placed our implant. And the only electronics which we need for such kind of approach inside the body is a rectifier and a capacitor. So rectifier, what it'll do, it will just receive those high frequency signal from the electrodes which are being placed at the body, and it will rectify them and slowly charge the capacitor, which is the implantable capacitor. So we are basically transferring power from an external generator through body conductive tissue to the capacitor which is being implanted. So but again, here there are several issues which we need to take care of. First is the tissue heating, and second one is the uh, first one is the heating, and second one is the shock, and all these, because we are directly connecting power to the body. So we cannot apply a large voltage continuously. It will heat the tissues and may damage it, and it can also lead to some shock. So there is something called as specific absorption rate, which is basically a term created by IEEE. We define the standard by which we can supply the signal to the body. So rather than providing a continuous sinusoidal or any signal, we have to provide signal in form of very short burst in for the time of microsecond duration. So we provide a very small signal, and then we disconnect the generator and let the capacitor charge. And after some time, we again provide the burst. So rather than a continuous signal, we provide the signal in the form of burst, and we keep the SAR rate below the threshold which is being mentioned by IEEE. So this is the proposed sensing approach that we have used. So this is very simple. Again, the same principle. We'll apply the external burst from the external generator. We'll charge the implantable capacitor through a diode, and we have connected register. I'll tell you what is the function of the register later. So these are the waveform which I was talking about. So rather than providing a continuous sinusoidal burst, we provide the sinusoidal signal for a very small duration of time. Let the capacitor charge for this duration, and then disconnect the burst. So eventually the capacitor will discharge through the body, and by connecting some sort of external circuitry which can detect this discharging pattern, we can detect how much is the value of the capacitance, or let's say a resistance. So now why I use this resistance is because proposed approach is not only for, so let's talk about sensing. This is only right till now I only talked about power transfer from external part of the body to implant. Now how can it be used for sensing? So it can be used for sensing by simply replacing this C with a sensor. Let's say we have a pressure sensor. We want to detect implant. We want to detect the pressure inside any part of the body. So we simply replace this capacitance by some pressure sensor. Or let's say we have a resistive sensor. Let's say we have resistive temperature sensor or anything. So we can replace this resistance by that temperature sensor or any resistive sensor. So we can use this model, this three component model, for power transfer as well as for sensing. So that's why we use this resistance. So what will happen? Let's say we have charged the capacitor. We have the sinusoidal burst coming into the body, which turn on this diode, and we'll get a rising voltage across this capacitor. And then once the sinusoidal burst ends, this diode will stop conducting, and this capacitor will discharge through this resistance and the conductivity of the tissue. So by measuring the discharging time constant of the capacitor, we can determine the value of either C or R. One have to be reference. The value of one should be known. Other should be the sensor, which for which we have used for measuring the specific content. So in this way, we can use this technique for powering as well as for sensing. So these are the typical waveforms, which how it will look like. So this is the charging pattern. Once it charge for a specific duration through which the bursts are on, it will then disconnect the external generator, and the pattern will discharge, and we'll measure this discharging time constant with some external circuitry. So what are the possibility with this approach? Possibilities, we can power the implantable electronics, no need of coil and battery, and there's a possibility then we can design the implant within a size of 1 mm. Okay, so this is the idea, and then this circuitry we have designed. Initial experimental result of this circuitry we have tested to measure the conductivity of the tissue. So conductive, it's just an application that we have targeted just to prove the concept that we have used. However, this can be used in many other applications where we have a capacitive or resistive sensor. So for the conductivity of the tissue, which have application for measuring the peripheral artery diseases and fluid across the lungs, which eventually used to detect the hypertension or heart attack. So we have targeted this conductivity measurement using the proposed approach. So what we'll do, the same principle, we'll charge the capacitor, and once the burst ends, the capacitor will discharge through the conductivity of the tissue where we have implanted the implant. So by measuring the discharging time constant, we'll be able to measure how much is the conductivity around the implant. So this is the formula that eventually will help us to determine the conductivity, which is being denoted by sigma. So by measuring this tau, we'll simply measure the value of the conductivity which is being around the implant. So this D is the implant electrode which we have fabricated. So before that, we have to model the system. So first, we model the system by having different conductivity and relative dielectric constant of the tissues. We have considered skin, muscle, and fat, and then we have injected the sensor inside, and we have applied different potential through the external electrode, and we have measured how much is the two-port network we have derived, just to get to know the idea about how much is the conductivity around the specific tissue. So yeah, please.
I think Shubham has a question. Yeah, please.
Okay, please go.
Shahid.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So, how exactly are we like accessing the data, like the pulses you are saying, right? The pulse,
Yes.
the discharging pulses.
Yes.
The implant is like implanted inside the body. So, how are we accessing that pulses outside?
Okay, so yeah, here you can see we have a low pass filter here. Okay, so once the burst ends, this sinusoidal burst ends, what will happen? This switching diode, it will disconnect this this burst generator. So this node basically here, it's a floating node. So nothing is going inside the burst generator. So body, the capacitor have to discharge through the body, and these external electrode will now function as a receiving electrode. Earlier it was being used as a transmitting electrode, but now since the burst generator had stopped transmitting the burst or the input signal, so the capacitor will eventually discharge through these electrode, and by putting, so the frequency of this discharge is relatively high, relatively slower than this low pass filter cutoff frequency. So we will eventually we'll get the same pattern here at the output of the low pass filter, and just by acquiring this with a very high resolution ADC, we can see the pattern of the discharging signal.
So how do we like make sure that this is the only discharge path? Like it doesn't discharge through the ground that is connected, like the bottom electrode or somewhere.
Yeah, because the potential difference have to be through some two part of the body. So there are two electrodes, and we are measuring the potential difference. Of course, it will discharge through the tissue, the whole tissue, but eventually there will be some potential difference between two electrodes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what we did to confirm that this technique worked, we first model the tissue which we are targeted into a two-port network. So why we need to do that? Because we don't know how much is the conductivity across the tissues and how much is the conductivity of other part. For example, the skin, the fat, and every other part of the body. So we have to model the body, the specific part of the body where we implanted the sensor into two-port network, and then we have to use those parameters for simulation and see if we are able to detect that discharging path that we talked about. So to do that, we have first modeled the whole body into COMSOL, the part of the body into COMSOL, extracted the two-port parameter, for example, the resistance and the impedance across the from the implantable electrode to the external electrode, and from external electrode to ground, and all this stuff. We have extracted those parameters and put those values into the two-port network, and we have provided the sinusoidal generator, and we have then measured the discharging pattern through the electrodes. So this is the simulation approach. Now with the hardware, first we did a test in the saline solution. So saline, the conductivity of the saline can be changed with adding sodium into it. So this is a very basic approach to vary the conductivity. So what we did, we designed a setup where we placed an implant electrode. We kept two electrode outside, and the whole circuitry right now is outside, because we wanted to just see if we are able to measure the pattern. So this is the setup, and we did actually were able to detect the exponential decay of the signal during the experiment. So here we can see is an experimental data. So we are able to see this discharging pattern from the data, from the recorded voltage. And then these are the experimental as well as simulated data. So we have simulated the whole saline solution into this COMSOL, and extracted the two-port parameters, and then simulated into multisim to get the simulation result. And the same procedure is repeated for experimental verification. And then we have combinedly plotted both data, and we see we are able to measure the experimental result very closely with the simulation that we've done. So this technique verifies that the proposed approach can be used for implantable purposes. So now the next step is to design an implant, and so right now the wire are being taken out from the saline, outside the saline. So the next step is to design an implant and placed inside the saline, just like we do for just to mimic the actual implantable sensing system. Yeah. Before that, one more experiment we did was to measure if the implant electrode and external electrode, they may not be very closely aligned with each other. For example, the direction of the implant electrode may be different than the direction of the external electrode. So there might be some sort of phase difference. So we have tested the circuit with the different phases, like putting the implant electrode into different phase with respect to the external electrode. So this technique actually help with this as well, because the information we are interested in is in the form of discharging, not in the form of amplitude. So
Hi Shahid, sorry
yeah,
to interrupt. Radik has a question.
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Shahid, this resistor and diode in parallel,
Yes.
with that. This is the model for the implant.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So what I was, yeah. So we have done testing for different angle of the implant with respect to external electrode. What will happen is because the angle of the dimension of the implant is different. So of course the power receiving from the external electronics will be lesser than the power that we are supposed to receive when the implant is perfectly aligned. So we'll get a different amplitude. But this technique actually take advantage of the fact that the information is not in the amplitude; it's in the discharging pattern. So even though the direction of the implant is different, the error in the measurement will still be zero because we are not interested in the amplitude. We are interested in the discharging pattern of the signal. So we are still able to measure the discharging pattern similar for different angle, and the error in the measurement of conductance is the same. And these
Shahid,
are, yeah,
can I ask you a question?
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I am just little bit off this flow that you're going. I just wanted to know why that electrode is modeled as this block diagram. I mean, like how we came up to this analogy.
Uh, the electrode is modeled as the whole system you're talking about, or only the electrode?
Only the electrode. I mean, the implant, no. I
Right.
mean, this resistor plus diode.
Okay, okay,
Uh,
okay,
yeah.
okay,
So
okay.
how we came up with this approximation?
Okay, yeah. So this is not an approximation. This is what the idea is, because see, uh, if we so see, R and C are simply, for example, we have to have a pressure sensor or a temperature sensor we want to use. Uh, we have to implant it inside the body to measure the blood pressure or temperature inside a specific part of the body or anything, right? So
Mhm.
we have to have this RC component there, which will act as a sensor. Okay. But in
Okay.
order to get the information from those, we have to have some sort of powering approach. We can't just receive signal. We have to power it and then convert the resistance or capacity into voltage, basically, transducer sort of stuff. So how can we do that? One approach is to use some wireless power transfer approach where we put a battery, either a battery or some inductive coupling method. But those are bulky, so rather than doing that, we'll just put a diode and supply the excitation signal from outside the body. Since body is conductive, it will the power that we are providing from outside, it will lead to the capacitor. It will eventually go to the capacitor through a diode. So this way we have come up with this model of the implant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you might be calculating the, maximum power that can be passed through.
Mhm.
So is there any way we can find that this is the limit? Is ज़्यादा voltage we
Yes.
cannot pass through?
Actually, yeah, there's a paper on that. I'll send you that, but I'll just talk little about it. So
Okay.
the limitation of power is comes with the specific absorption rate that I talked about. So our body can't continuously receive signal because these are AC signal applied to the
Okay.
body. So we can't just apply that continuously 100 volt into our body. So what will happen? It will damage the tissue, or it heat up, or it might give you shock. So the limitation of power comes from that angle. So we
Yes.
can't cross a specific threshold. We have to be below that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So these are the experimental results for different conductivity, and the experiment. The right now the whole system is not designed for a better and accurate system. We just wanted to prove that this technique can be used for sensing as well as power transfer. So error is relatively higher, but by tuning it properly, the every component we have to characterize it, and then there is a possibility this error can be reduced, because if you see the error is in most of the cases is around 4 to 5%. Then the next step is to design an actual implant and see if this works. So right now, what we have done, we have just placed electrode inside the saline solution and took the wire out. But this is not how the implants are being implanted. We have to have actual implant which can be inserted because this is wired. We have to have a wireless technique. So what we did, we fabricated an implant in a PCB. So we just needed 3 components. So we have designed a PCB with a diameter less than 1 mm, and we all these fabrication steps are similar to what actual implants are being designed. So we have placed this implant in a silicone tube, which are biocompatible with the body, and all this stuff we have taken care. And this implant is then injected into a agar pendulum. So agar can be fabricated with a different conductivity, and we, in order to do the test, we have to have something with different conductivity. So we fabricated agar pendulum with different conductivity, and then we inserted the implant inside the agar, and this agar mimic the behavior of the body. And then we have these 2 external electrodes, and these 2 external electrodes are now being used to transfer the power, and then disconnect the power generator, and being used as a receiver electrode. So here we can see, here's a whole setup. So these are function generator which provide the burst signal. This is power amplifier because we need very relatively higher amplitude to power the capacitor in the injectable sensor. And then this circuitry is being transferred to a NI deck card, which has a ADC with a very high resolution of 24-bit. 16-bit. Yeah. So this is the setup that we have used, and again we have tested it for multiple conductivity, and we are able to measure the conductivity of the tissue wirelessly. So this proved the approach novelty of the approach, that it can be used as a power transfer and as well as the sensing. Okay. So I came to end. Feature of the proposed technique: it can be used to power the sensor. It can be used for sensing as well. The implant, we have designed an implant with a thickness of 0.95 mm, which is less than 1 mm. Tested with different agar and saline solution. We have tested the conductivity of the tissues from 0.2 Siemens per meter to 0.8 Siemens per meters, and then the error is less than plus minus 10%. This is the injection process that we have used. So right now the injection process we have used is for in vitro experiment. We haven't done any in vivo testing. We have just done an experiment on the agar phantom. So we have this catheter where we insert the sensor, and then we place the catheter inside specific part of the phantom, and we push it inside the phantom and remove the catheter. The sensor stays inside. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, this work is being done in with Professor Antony in MedTech. So I'd like to acknowledge those people. Thank you. If you guys have more questions, let me know.
Thank you, Shahid. Yes, so we can have a Q&A session now. You can ask any question you like. No need to raise hand. You can just unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah. So, Shahid, thank you very much for your nice presentation.
Yeah, no.
I had missed joining a little bit late, so my questions might sound redundant. So my doubt is, like, you are inserting the sensor inside,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
No, how is the reading being taken? You have to connect some wire, right?
No, we haven't done that. But you want to know how we do the experiment wirelessly?
In this you're seeing in the F, you have put in the sensor,
Yes. Yes.
right? And then now in a real situation, like how you are supposed to take the measurements.
Yeah. So we have to place the sensor inside.
Mhm.
We have powered the sensor first through
Mhm.
some external generator
Mhm.
for a very small duration of time. Then we disconnect the external generator, and the electrode that we have used are being used now as a receiving electrode. So what will happen? The We have charged the capacitor. The capacitor now will discharge through the body, and we can then detect from those 2 external electrodes. We can detect the discharging pattern because the tissue of the body are conductive.
Mm.
So though
Okay.
the amplitude of the signal will be very low, let's say we have charged the capacitor to, for example, in this figure we have shown that we have charged the capacitor to 1 volt, but due to this uh, uh, amplitude reduction because attenuation because of the tissue conductivity, you'll get a very small signal, maybe 1,000 times lesser than voltage which are being there in the capacitor. But with a very high resolution ADC, we can detect this small voltage.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, where are we receiving the signal? It is, acha, you are having this two black external electrodes.
Yes, yes, those are
Yeah.
being used for transferring as well as receiving. Yeah.
Okay. So this is basically we can check the conductivity, right? So you are,
Yes.
I mean, the application you are seeing that if some tissue the conductivity is varying,
Yes.
you would like to say whether that tissue is good or not, right? Like that.
Yes. Yeah, there are a lot of application to it. I mean, one which and there is a device, commercial device, but it uses active. This is a passive device because we have only passive component.
Yeah.
There is this device from CardioMEMS.
Mm.
They have active circuitry, so they have inductive coupling. They have power mechanism, but it's very bulky. It's like 10 of diameter, and then there is length. I'm not sure about how much it is, but it is being used to measure, to record the hypertension. If there's chances of heart attack to a patient, the conductivity across the lungs increases with time,
Mhm.
and by measuring those conductivity we can detect the person can go under a hypertension condition, heart attack condition. So there are several applications to it. Yes.
The other thing is that how long can we use this? I mean, like you are till the capacitor is completely discharged.
Oh yeah.
So
So external signal have, so whenever we want to measure the conductivity, the external signal the implant have to keep charging.
yeah.
Yeah, because this is passive. So if you want to measure it continuously, we have to have an external generator which keeps on providing the burst to the capacitor.
Oh, okay. So you are, I mean, whenever it is discharged, that is, it is no longer sending any signal, then you will have to use this external electrodes to charge it.
Yeah, external electrode will always be there because even for receiving the signal, we need those electrodes.
Okay, so how can we charge it once it is discharged in a body?
Yeah, we have to charge through the external electrodes with a bus generator. See, this bus, we are not physically disconnecting this bus generator. There's a switching network,
Okay.
so it will always be there. What will
Mhm.
happen after a specific time duration for which we have kept it on? This switching generator will automatically disconnect this node of the external electrode.
Mhm.
So after we have programmed the bus generator in such a way that after a specific duration, it will turn on again, charge the capacitor, measure the specific tissue conductance, and then again. So it will keep on going.
Okay.
Measurement process.
And this, the external stimulus that you are giving,
Mhm.
um, I would suggest, Len, if you can get some I mean CE test done to see if there is any effect of the
What is
electromagnetic.
sleep test? Sorry, I don't know.
So when, if for example, if you are going to get accreditation for this, in US you have to get it done with FDA clearance.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, okay.
So there are certain tests, biocompatibility
Oh
test
yes,
and
of course. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
electromagnetic interference test, etc. and all.
Mm-hmm.
So for this, if you can, get some tests done,
Mm-hmm.
it would be better. I mean, like,
Okay. Yeah, I will look into it. Right now, what we have done is used the commercial generators. We haven't not designed them, so I will check whether they are compatible for biomedical application or not. But thanks for
yeah.
the tip.
So this material itself is biocompatible, right? You are wrapping it
The
around a
implantable
plastic
material
bag.
is, yes, biocompatible. We have used silicon for this tube.
Okay.
So yeah,
How much can you just give me a rough dimension of this length from
implantable.
electrode to
Yeah,
point?
the the whole implantable sensor length is 25 but the diameter is less than 1
And how did you fabricate this?
Oh, we have designed a PCB. So if you see here, there's a small
Okay.
PCB with because we don't need much active components. So the size of the PCB is actually 0.75 The width diameter of the PCB is 0.75 It's been designed especially for this implantable application. It's very small.
Okay. This design, I mean, where was it fabricated? Not in India, right?
No, no, no.
Okay. Thank you, Shahid bhai.
If you
Okay.
know, if you want to know more detail, I can tell you offline.
Yeah.
Shahid,
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
so I have a question. So, like, what will be the amplitude at the electrodes when you're transmitting the
So it's very
pulses?
large. It's large. Very large.
So,
Well, very large means I have kept it 15 volt.
15 volts.
Yes, because the attenuation is very high. But whatever the amplitude is, we have to look into not into amplitude. We have to look into the specific absorption rate. It cannot because it's directly proportional to the amplitude that we are supplying. But it cannot. It should not cross the threshold that are being there by the standard.
So, like, do you think the your transmitter can be made portable?
Yeah, we are working on that. We haven't done portability issues there, but yeah, that's a valid thing. So what we are trying is we are trying to because we don't have to give continuous pulses. So we are trying to use a battery for that to convert it into AC signal and then provide it. Because the duration of the signal is in microseconds, so it has to be on for a very small duration of time, and then we can turn it off. So there's a chance it can be portable, but we have to use a battery.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Shahid, there is a question from Vikas. He's asking what is the maximum voltage current that tissues can bear without any shock?
Okay, so it depends on the frequency. So if the frequency of the signal is uh, uh, very small, we cannot cross a very we cannot provide a very large signal. But if the frequency is in the range of megahertz, we can provide a high signal. But again, not continuously because it will hit the tissue. So we have to provide it very in a small burst. I can't give you actual numbers because it's a numerical. We have to have this frequency and then this amplitude. But I can send you this specific absorption rate formula, and then it can be derived.
Okay, thank you.
So, what is the frequency that you are using?
I have used 1 megahertz signal.
Okay.
This is the minimum that are being asked for such application. We can't go below 1 megahertz, and but it's better to use around 5 megahertz. But we have used a power amplifier, and its gain reduces with frequency. So we were stuck with 1 megahertz, but we can go from 1 megahertz to above.
Yeah, Shahid, I have a question. So far, this is all good, but what is the future of this?
So
Meaning,
if there's a port, so if the one valid concern which already being asked is portability.
right?
If we are able to design, if we are able to make a portable system which can provide external signal that we are generated, I think it has a very good potential in terms of miniaturization. It can be used for implantable application in the brain as well.
Okay,
So one very interesting thing is to use it in the stent. There's a stent which are being used to keep the valve open, arteries open,
right.
and we can implant those stent. Those stent can be used in the brain as well to record the brain signals. And there's a company which already doing that, but they have this external wire going, and we can replace those wire with this technique, and they can these this can completely in my view reduce the size of plant by not using the inductive coupling method.
Okay.
Okay, there's hello Shahid. There's a question in the chat. What is the burst duration? Vikas Gatge is asking what
it,
is the burst duration?
it's 1 microsecond. The duration is no, sorry, 0.1 millisecond. Yeah, 100 microsecond. Yeah, if you see here, yeah, it's 0.1 millisecond, and then the discharging pattern is so the frequency of the burst is 1 kilohertz, and the duration of the burst for which it is on is 100 microsecond.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, Shahid, Deepak.
Hi,
Yeah,
Deepak.
there is one question.
Mhm.
Like our body impedance, like it is also modeled as the resistance and the capacitor combination.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so how's that body impedance can affect your measurements?
So the frequency that we have used is very large. It's in
Mhm.
megahertz.
Okay, but during the detection stage, that the discharging stage of the capacitor, because it takes time, more like around 1 second or 0.8 seconds something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will affect the discharging pattern and eventually the measurement. But for now, the experiments are been done by modeling this tissue in the form of resistance. But the next work will be to consider both impedance as well.
Yeah, because in the every heartbeats that the during the blood flow in the arteries, the impedance will change.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah.
We'll consider that for next one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions from the audience?
Surya, let's wait for 2 to 3 minutes and then you can wrap up the session.
Yeah. Vikas has a question. So he asks, can we get any basic documents related to basics of implantable sensors?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can send you that if you can give me your email ID. I have to look into the data again. I mean the document again. But yeah, you can provide the email ID to me. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, because I've noted down your email ID. I'll be passing it on to Shahid. So he'll be sending you. You can also, yeah, interact with him offline. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Shahid for graciously accepting the invitation. Like as soon as I told him that he had to give a can he give a talk, he quickly accepted it, and then he spent some time as Parth initially gave an introduction, like mentioned in the introduction, he's leaving for his postdoc, so he's quite busy with that, and I would like to thank Shahid for sparing some time for us and sharing his research with all of us. On behalf of PGAC, Radik would thank Shahid. Like I would request Radik to give the vote of thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Surya, for this opportunity. I know Shahid Bhai for some more reasons, and I know how much sacrifice he has done and the passion with which he has been doing his research. I would like to thank you for giving this talk. It was very good. And also, I would like to extend my gratitude to you. So, I wish you a very successful journey ahead in your postdoc career. And it would be great if, whenever you get an opportunity, you can come back and give some talk to us juniors. So, it would be great for us to stay in touch and also to know about your advances in your research career. Best of luck for the same, Shahid Bhai.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Radik. Thank you, Surya. I'll surely be in touch. Yes.
Yeah. Best wishes. Best wishes
Yeah,
again.
you too,
Thank
man.
you.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and let's close this meeting. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.